Welcome to another chilling chapter of Echoes of the Dark. Tonight's tale is not for the faint-hearted. Settle in, but make sure to lock your doors. Our story is entitled The Widow's Midnight Guest. Imagine a sprawling, remote countryside that stretches endlessly under an unforgiving moonlight. Here lies Raven's Hollow, a quaint, forgotten village that seems untouched by time. At the edge of town stands an ancient home, draped in ivy and sadness. This is the home of Eliza, the widow Halloway. With a veil as black as her mourning, Eliza is rarely seen by the townsfolk during daylight hours. Whispers suggest her husband's untimely death left her unhinged. Others simply say the house is cursed. Eliza, who spends her days sewing by the lone candle glow and evenings lost in the echo of silence, has only the clock's tick-tock as her companion. The locals steer clear, but tonight, someone calls at her door. A knock breaks the midnight stillness. The widow hesitates, her trembling fingers flinching as they meet the door handle. "Who is it?" she whispers, loud enough for the night to hold its breath, but soft enough to betray her apprehension. Silence. The knock comes again, urgent this time. Against her better judgment, Eliza inches the door open. There stands a man, cloaked, drenched by the rain that arrived unnoticed, his face pale but refined. He smiles, revealing teeth so perfect they seem otherworldly. "I apologize for the intrusion," the man says, his voice warm, yet oddly hollow. "My carriage broke down. Might I seek shelter for a while? Just until the storm passes." Compassion outweighs caution, and Eliza, ceaselessly lonely, steps aside to admit this peculiar stranger. He bows low, removing his hat to reveal neatly combed ebony hair. The widow notices his eyes, dark pools that seem bottomless. She shivers, though the room is warm. "I'm called Elias," the man introduces himself as she prepares tea from an old kettle. The two sit in her modest parlor. Words are exchanged, stories shared, yet Eliza notices how Elias deflects every question about himself. He speaks instead of the stars, of how the night sky is painted by the sorrows of forgotten souls. His eloquence is captivating, and there's something magnetic in his smile. For the first time in years, Eliza stifles a laugh. She almost forgets the heavy burden of her grief. The clock strikes 1. The tea grows cold, yet Elias shows no sign of leaving. It's only when the fire flickers ominously, casting unnatural shadows, that Eliza feels unease creeping in again. She glances at her guest, who has fallen silent, his gaze transfixed on a small locket hanging from the mantelpiece. "Why do you stare at that locket?" she asks, trying to mask her discomfort. "Yours?" he inquires, his voice suddenly distant. "It belonged to my husband," she replies, clutching the folds of her dress for comfort. An oppressive quiet descends. Elias stands, now impossibly tall, his shadow stretching across the entirety of the flickering room. He steps closer to Eliza, his features obscured by dim light and perhaps something less natural. "I wonder," Elias murmurs, his head cocked as though listening to a voice only he can hear. "Do you ever miss him? Truly, deeply miss him? Enough that you'd give anything to see him again?" A shiver rushes down her spine, yet her throat betrays her. Yes," she whispers, unable to tear her eyes away from his. "Anything?" he presses, his grin widening inhumanly, stretching too far, tipping the scale of what the human face can convey. Fright overtakes her. "It's late," she stammers, stepping backward. "Perhaps you should retire." But Elias doesn't move. Instead, he hovers, his frame unfathomable now, as if rewritten by the flicker of the dying fire. A sound from behind her startles Eliza, a shuffle, barely perceptible, but unlike the popping of the hearth. Slowly, ever so slowly, she turns. There in the doorway stands her husband, His form isn't entirely corporeal. His features are suspended in a flickering half-state, like glimpses of motion through water. Eyes that once held warmth now hold eternity's emptiness. She gasps, her heart a battleground between hope and terror. "Henry?" she breathes, tears pooling as she steps toward him. The apparition does not move, but the air seems thick with pain. "Oh, Henry, I've missed you so terribly." "He doesn't belong here anymore," Elias's voice interrupts. "It's sharper now, darker. Yet, you wished. Lo and behold, wishes come at a price." "I don't understand," she stammers. But she does. Deep down, she knows. "Every door opened in loneliness," Elias begins, tilting his head mockingly, "is an invitation for something else. But let's not part on bad terms." He strides to the door, his heels echoing like funeral dirges, and places his hat back on his soaking head. "Wait!" Eliza cries, desperate to grasp control. "What do you mean by price?" Elias pauses, looking back from the threshold with burning amusement. "Your Henry? Your husband? He's here. He'll stay as long as you like. But you won't be leaving." Before Eliza can protest or plead, Elias steps through the doorway into the unraveling night. The door slams shut on its own with an echo that reverberates through her marrow. She turns, trembling, to her husband's specter. His face twists, contorted, no longer the man she once loved. The candles douse. The clock stops ticking. And the house becomes silent forevermore. Did you enjoy tonight's chilling escapade? Our midnight guest has left, but his shadow lingers. Stay tuned for another tale, from Echoes of the Dark. Until then, lock your door and ask yourself, would you dare answer the midnight knock? Good night, darlings.